my name is Liz, and welcome to the Tiny Treatery, and today I am testing out extra large piping tips. My mom sent these to me because she said I just had to try them, and at first I was like, don't send me those, I already have large piping tips, I don't need more piping tips. But then she said they are larger than the ones that I have. So I have a set of tips that is about this size in general. This is a Wilton tip, and this is the extra large piping tip, which honestly, on a first glance, doesn't really look that much bigger, but today's video is to compare and see how much of a difference it makes. So I'll meet you in the kitchen. Welcome to the kitchen. So I have all of my supplies set out here. I have some cupcakes that I made last night in preparation for this. I have all of my tips set out. I have two very large piping bags that came with the extra large piping tips that are prepared with couplers so that I can try all of the tips that I have. And I really like the size of this. I mean, most times I don't need a piping bag that is this big, but the times I do need to do a lot of piping, it's kind of nice to have some leeway at the end of the bag because I tend to fill them too much and then it's squeezing out the top, and you know, I should have learned by now, but no matter how many times I use a piping bag, I'm always like, just a little more, it'll fit, and then it doesn't really fit. I have a whole bunch of icing prepared so we can really practice with these tips. And I have a ruler here. So I measured these, and in general, the Wilton tips are about a centimeter wide at the top. I mean, it's kind of hard to measure when they have like a fancy little design, but in general, that's about how big they are. And the extra large ones are about 1.5 centimeters. So that's like a 50% increase, but still, I'm just not convinced it's going to be that dramatic, but that's the point of this experiment. Let's load our piping bags. I don't normally do this on camera, but this video is all about the piping experience, so I might as well show this part too. So, if you're using a coupler, unscrew it, put your tip of choice in, and don't be crazy and drop it like I almost just did. Screw the coupler back on, and it's ready to be loaded with icing. Although I guess I could have loaded the icing before. It doesn't really matter because, you know, the icing will be in there when I switch tips. But anyway, so a hot strategy is to get some sort of like a cup that you can put the piping bag in while you're loading it, and then fold it down around the cup so that you can load deep into the bag and then pull this up, and then you won't get all sticky and icky. So sometimes my piping bag does not have as much of a margin, like I was saying, so then I'm loading it still pretty close to the edge, and that's when you get sticky icky, but I don't think that's gonna happen with this because this is such a large bag. I'm gonna try to load this deeply, and I'm also gonna try to not put a ton in. I can reload it if needed, I hope, because if it's too much, it like really hurts your hand to pipe. So is that even enough? Okay, that's not enough. Okay, I'm like freaking out that I don't have enough icing. I put this is 3 sticks of butter worth of icing, and you're telling me I'm not gonna have enough to do this demonstration? That better not be true. Squeeze it down. Well, we'll see what I can do with this amount. I'm not sure it's enough, but we will try. So this is just the Wilton tip. This is the normal large but standardly large size tip. I mean, I recognize this is a lot of frosting, and I, you know, should be able to demonstrate, but the problem with enormous tips and big couplers is that, like, once you get down and your icing is like here, you're just stuck. And really, there's like a significant amount of icing left in the coupler and the tip, like enough to probably frost a whole cupcake, but you just can't get it out because you don't have something behind it to push it out. So that's a little frustrating, but we're gonna see what we can do. So I have the 2 round tips, I have 2 open star tips, 2 French tips, which look a lot like open stars, but just with more spikes, 2 closed star tips, and then I think this is like a pedal tip. I don't have an equivalent for this in a smaller size, but we'll see what it looks like, assuming I have enough frosting to even get that far. I can't believe I'm gonna have to make more frosting. I should set the butter out now. Let that start the very long process of warming up, and I'll probably get impatient and put it in the microwave if it comes to that. Let's head over to the decoration table and try these out. Demonstration complete. And as I predicted, I ran out of icing. So I didn't really get to the petal tip, honestly, but what I'm gonna do is use my last 2 sticks of butter, because this is all I have, make more frosting, and decorate as many cupcakes as I am allowed to with that amount of frosting. In doing that, I hopefully will get a better attempt at the petal tip that we didn't really get to see. But as far as these go, first disclaimer, probably obvious, I am not the best piper. I could stand to practice a lot. So some of this is pretty sloppy, especially those like attempted borders. I'm pretty bad at those, but I did my best. Despite that though, some of these swirls for the extra large tips look very, very good for somebody who is not that good at piping. The round ones don't look that great. I'm not the best with round tips. The open star one looks okay, but then I was kind of getting into the groove of it, and the French one and the closed star one I think look very, very good. The round and French tip are pretty comparable in terms of like the texture of what comes out of the piping tip. So obviously the round tip, it just is what it is. And the French tips look pretty similar. So I think this might be like the best comparison of the size difference that you can get. And it's not like the craziest thing in the world, but I think it definitely looks more impressive and substantial than the Wilton tip. For the open star and the closed star, the distance between the spikes or the number of spikes or something seems to be different. So you do have a size difference, obviously, but the actual result, it just is not the same texture, really. It doesn't look the same, but even so, I think the extra large closed swirl might be my favorite. I mean, look at the gargantuanity of it. As someone who's not the biggest frosting fan, I don't know if I would want that on my cupcake, but if I'm presenting cupcakes to other people, I think these extra large tips might be the way to go. They look a lot better and more impressive. Now that we've seen the head-to-head scientific experiment on paper, I'm gonna decorate some cupcakes, have you watch that, and then we'll taste them and wrap this up. So, first of all, I'm aware Easter is over and it's long gone, but I really like this cute Easter basket. I'll get rid of it before the next video, but just one more video because I think it's cute. So here are the cupcakes that were piped with the extra large tips. So full disclosure, I did film a taste test already, actually. In that clip, I believe I talked a little bit about the comparisons that I did on paper, and I don't remember what I said. So I'm gonna play that, and then I'll come back to you with a little more commentary. I'll try one of these cupcakes and then send you on your way. The purpose of this video was to show you the difference in magnitude between the Wilton Large tips and these extra large tips. And I think I got that across. It is clear that the largeness does make a difference. So the real reason that I redid this is partially because I didn't think I did a great job piping the cupcakes in the first round. And honestly, I don't think I did any better, because something else that I mentioned in that other clip, which I'll play for you now, piped like 4 cupcakes. And I did this on the demonstration papers. I don't know if you've noticed, but I started on the outside and went up, and then I watched a little video by Wilton on how to properly swirl a cupcake, because they were just looking really lopsided and bad. And you start in the middle and then go around and travel up. I don't know what gave me the idea that I was supposed to start on the edge, because I feel like I must have gotten that from somewhere, but I don't know. I know the proper technique now, nearly 2 years-ish, kind of, into my baking journey, and I finally figured out the proper technique for piping a cupcake. So when I filmed the first test, I actually did 2 sets of cupcakes that time, because the first time I was like doing them wrong. And then I figured it out, and they were a little better, but I was just like, you know, I just feel bad. I just want to try again. I want them to look beautiful, and these are like still not that good. So my main conclusion is that I still think they look pretty good for being somebody who is bad at piping. So if you're not that good at piping, large tips might be the answer for you. That was like a secondary reason, because I think those other ones were like passable. But the real thing is I was like, it's just not fair that I have this pedal tip and I couldn't figure out how to use it in my first round. So I really want to try again and get this to work. And I tried to like look up videos that use a tip like this, and I kind of found one that kind of did, but it was not exactly the same tip. And I just can't figure it out. It just does not look good. They have a picture when you buy the piping tips that show you what I think this tip is supposed to do. This is not happening. It is not at all what that picture is showing. And I do think my icing was probably a little too warm and thin at this point when I tried to do the pedal thing. But even if it were stiff, it's just a really weird size. And I think for a pedal tip, you might not want it to be this completely enormous. I think it looks good for the ones where you're doing a swirl, but this pedal tip, I don't know. It could be user error, but it just didn't work out for me. And another thing is that I knew that when I did the pedal tip last time, I was like, well, maybe the frosting was too thin, it was not stiff enough. I still think that was true here, but I even put shortening as like a third of the fat percentage in this frosting instead of all butter, because shortening like holds its shape a little better. It didn't do me any favors. I still was not able to make this work. But anyway, yeah, sorry for the weird liner. These liners are like for extra large cupcakes. I didn't have regular size, so I just used them. So they don't fit that great, but I'm gonna use a French tip because that is my favorite, and I'm gonna do a Wilton tip and see just how different the swirl looks. Like I said, I'm not that good at piping and making it look even, but I think seeing them compared side by side like this really shows just how much better the extra large tips are. I mean, I don't know, it's weird because it's like not that big of a difference, but I just think this one looks plumper, it looks more appetizing, it's cuter. This one just looks a little sad, and maybe it's just because I did a bad piping job. I have one last cupcake here, but its liner fits even worse. So maybe I'll take it out of the liner, give it its best shot. I don't really have a lot of frosting left though, and it is a little thin. That's all I have. Like, the large tips are good, they'll get the job done, but I really think these extra large ones are kind of the way to go if you're just gonna do some simple swirls on a cupcake. I'm gonna taste one. I'll taste the round one, because I kind of think round tips are like the ugliest, least interesting, and I might want to give one of these to a friend, and so I should eat the ugly one myself. I had trouble with this in the last one I filmed too. Like, it's just scary to bite into a mound of frosting this tall, but I'm gonna do it. I really didn't get that much frosting on my face. I thought last time it was going to be a ton, and I thought this time it was going to be a ton. But really, it's just like, it feels sticky, but it doesn't look that bad. I got some in my ear. It's kind of weird. I used to hate buttercream because it was too buttery. And I still kind of feel like it is too buttery, but now that I'm like having this kind with a little bit of shortening, which I haven't done in a very long time, it's kind of like, it's kind of gross. So I guess I trained myself to be a buttercream person. After all that time of kind of claiming to be somebody that doesn't really like it, now I want more butter in this actually. It's a lot of frosting, like a lot. So if you love frosting more than the cake part, that's yet another reason to get these extra large tips. Personally, and I say this all the time, but for me, this is my ideal cupcake. It's just better without all that frosting in the way. And if you're curious about the flavor of these cupcakes, since they are a little brown, it's just a basic vanilla recipe linked in the description that I added Trader Joe's pumpkin spice mix to. To sum up, as you can clearly see by this direct comparison, the extra large tips are more impressive. I think you will yield cuter cupcakes even if, like me, you are not that good at piping. So large tips have their place for maybe borders on a cake, but I think the extra large ones are worthwhile having if you are somebody that wants to have a bunch of piping tips. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more tiny treats.